uh, yeah. And you don't have any questions, first of all? And
No, I do not. I'm actually interested in seeing where this conversation goes because I've come here with an open mind,
nice,
and just seeing where this is going to take us. It should be exciting.
amazing. Thank you. So we always ask our guests, what is have you got a meaning or a reason behind your name? You personally?
I'm sure there is, but I do not know it.
Okay.
I don't know it, and I've actually never bothered to find out what that reason is. But I'm sure, like as all African names are, there's normally a huge story behind it. But I use my dad's name, so at least for me, that's the meaning as far as it goes. It's my father's name,
There you go.
and an opportunity for us to extend the lineage and be reminded not to be an embarrassment to the family.
That's a good, and that's why I also ask for a reason, because it doesn't have to just be a
Yeah,
meaning. There could be a reason why you were named that as well. So
yeah.
that's,
No,
and
I took on my dad's name. My dad is called Ogutu, so I'm called Ogutu, as is a lot of the naming culture, out here in Africa. You take on your father's name. I guess for most of the people, it's just really a lineage thing, so you can know whose children are yours, and so you can know where to pass on, inheritance and legacy and things like that. Why I was given that name, I don't know why he decided to name me his name. Because all my brothers have second names. I don't have a second name. I'm just his name. And I've never asked. Maybe that was a good time. If I come to think about it, maybe I should ask and find out why that is.
yeah, send them a quick message or give them a call after this conversation,
Yeah,
and for next time we'll
definitely.
have it. Awesome.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about names and the culture behind them, even in the last few days. Um, so what about Kafunda Creative and the name
Ah.
behind that?
So the name comes. It's impossible to talk about the name without talking about the story. So about 8 9 years ago, I used to live in this little flat in. There's a place called Wandegia, which is like the hustle bustle. It's stuff happens. It's a campus district, so basically it never sleeps, right? But my friends and I were, of not very good financial means at the time, um and but would like to spend a Friday night together, a Thursday night together, hang out, like everyone does.
Mhm.
And so what happens is that we decide to start hanging out at my flat, which was the most accessible flat for all of us. It was right in the center of town, right? And that flat got called Kafunda. Is basically, it means like it's little, like locally, like if you are to translate it. But the culture of Kafunda, like if you look about like the names of what that is, if someone says I'm going to the Kafunda, it's normally like a little place, but also that has become a place that is with affordability, a place that has like nice local food, a place that serves a lot of local food, and so like generally with that sort of like history behind it, my flat side being called the Kafunda because it's the place that we used to hang out, because it's the place that we could afford, right? It was cheap for us. But a lot of my friends were in the creative scene, right? And so what happens that oftentimes one would hang out together, and normally someone would say something about their work or stuff like that, and then there'll just be this nonchalant brainstorming about their problem or whatever. Um, and then sometimes they'll get a solution. Sometimes we'll just get more questions, and stuff like that. But it sort of built this nice, interesting community of people around it. And so, one of these nights we're sitting there and we're just thinking and saying, look, I mean, even if it's just for a community of people that you can learn from and you can, brainstorm with and you can collaborate with, it would be nice if this kind of community was extended, right, beyond these walls. And so that night we get a piece of paper. We're meeting at the Kafunda, so we call the company Kafunda Kreative, right? Because it was for creative people. It was in the Kafunda, but also we wanted to be able to keep that ethos of it's a small, it's intimate, it's about community. It's a place where you can come as you are. You don't have to impress anybody. You don't have to fit any social status. And so we wanted to be able to just sort of capture that ethos in the stuff that we wanted to do. And so yeah, the name Kafunda Creative stuck, and we started building things around that would help the people in that community be able to overcome some of the challenges we are facing and create a better ecosystem for creatives.
So how
Yeah.
how's that process been then, from that Kafunda apartment and coming up with that name and knowing that you all have your skills to share? How's that process gone since then?
The process has been interesting. It has been a process of learning and failing and stopping and starting, um, and just doing stuff and hoping it turns out all right. Some of it did, some of it didn't. And it has been a really interesting journey of just learning what the creative ecosystem is, and testing our assumptions around the stuff that we want to do. So I mean, I'll so when we started out, we said, okay, we want to get creatives in the same room, because of course we had to define what it is that we wanted to build at the time, and we've been adding to that definition over and over so that we can develop something. So at the time we wrote down that we wanted to build a community of creatives who learn from one another, who grow together and collaborate, to produce brands, products, and services that kick ass, right? And to do that, we said, okay, fine, we need to just go and test this out in the real world. So we developed a campaign called Koi Koi UG, which was just saying, hey, at the time, I think this was about 2 elections ago. And if you're in Nairobi, you know what Ugandan elections can be like. They can be very, very heated, to put it very politely. Um, and oftentimes, what happens is that the news cycle, the internet, the image, everything that's put out of the country is just those things, right? It's the police brutalizing someone. It's just and and even if those things are true, right? Um, it felt unfair that our entire country's image was being judged based on that one section of the country. So we said we want to go out and put 1 million great images and stories on the internet. So we put out a call. Creatives would come, would get together, would get into a bus, would travel, would go see the country, would photograph it, would talk to people, would write stories. And it was a really interesting campaign at the time. Um, but also, more importantly, what it was is that there were a lot of creatives who were getting together and learning from one another. So people became better writers in the process because they would sit next to a senior writer on the bus, and then they tell them, oh, this is how you write. There are people who came onto the trips and had never held a camera and became photographers. Yeah, and so that spirit of collaboration was there, and we started to build this thing out, and then we ran out of money, and then we stopped. But the learnings from that trip said, okay, fine, we've done this, it's great, but you start to realize that there's certain challenges that flow through that creatives face, and you're like, fine, let's not just be a cool social meetup of creatives, right? Creatives are suffering these actual problems. Let's solve them, right? And so we realized three problems: access to skills, access to tools, and access to markets. Right? It was those were the three things that just kept reoccurring, and that were just sort of cutting across. And so we set out to say, these are the three things that we want to be able to solve. And therefore, we again, I don't know if it was an evolution, because we still want to be a community. We still are a community. But from the company side, our responsibility to that community is to skill them and to tool them and to grow top creative talent and connect them to valuable work. So we have spent the last couple of years trying to build things around that, trying to build partnerships with legal entities so creatives can have access to legal if they needed to. Um, Building a marketplace where people can come and post their work and be able to hire creatives for that. We haven't gotten around the tooling section yet because, again, um, for the many years, our model has been we spend what we make. So the programs that we've been running have been off, the commissions we've been making from the work that we've been getting. After we've paid the creatives, whatever is left is what we normally put back into programs. But we've run things like creative clinics, which is saying, okay, how do we create an affordable peer-to-peer skilling um, program, because we know creative skilling is expensive, right? But also the one that exists on the internet, particularly to go to YouTube, but that's not very contextual. And it's not contextual because a kid in the States will be able to get, the latest camera on credit, right? But you here in Uganda, you're probably photographing with something that's 4 or 5 years old. You probably don't have the strobe lights and all these things that they're using. And therefore, it helps to have someone who has been in that scenario, who has figured out how to make it work. But also, there is a thing about one, I mean, people say it lightly, it seems like a buzzword these days, but seeing someone who is like you, who has done it, and who is telling you about it, makes it much easier to learn than when your brain can come up with excuses of, oh, they're in Europe, or they're what, or they have access to this, or access to that. Um, and so creating those skilling programs was important for us, and we've been doing that, for the last couple of years. We've been running something called the creative sprint that happens at the beginning of every year. And the creative sprint basically is a realization that a lot of creatives really know how to create, but they're really bad at business, and they're really bad at the things that make businesses run. And that's even from me as a person. It's the realization, because my background is a background of a creative. But when I got into trying to manage a company like Kafunda Creative, I realized that I had excessive deficiencies in just basic things like corporate communications, for example, knowing how to speak to people about the work that you're doing, knowing how to present your work, knowing how to market yourself, and all these things. So we do an event at the beginning of every year. It's a 3-day conference that is just about saying, hey, here's the business of how this works, right?
Mm.
And so we have been sort of evolving based on the needs that we've been finding with the community in which we have been working. So the community is still there; it's still core to the business, and we just keep saying, okay, what does the community need, and how can we, best as a company provide and respond to that need. So it's been one of those journeys that has been interesting. Of course, if you pepper in COVID somewhere there, then it becomes a rather interesting journey, because for such an unprecedented time, but a rather exciting time for creatives, because the world realized that you need creatives to keep businesses running in an online era. But also just basically just keep you going as human beings, because I mean, art and music and stuff was what kept us sane, during the pandemic and during the lockdowns.
Mhm.
So it's been a rather interesting um, up and down journey over the last 7 years.
Mhm. Mhm. And so a lot of us creatives have run out of money, and you've talked about that, and you've talked about the business side. So what did you change after? You're still around, you're still here. So what did you change?
Um, so we changed our model. So before we're doing those trips based on sponsorships, right? Um, and when that happened and we ran out of money and we're closed for a while, we'll say, look, the sustainable thing is for us to start making our own money. It's in as much as sponsorships are welcome, they're just one of the revenue sources that the business can benefit from, right? So we said, look, we're just going to go out and actually build a marketplace where we can make some money that can allow us to run the programs that we want to run, and not entirely depend on grants or sponsorships to be able to run the stuff that we want to run. So that's what happened, and it's been interesting. It's been interesting just surviving off the money that we make, and just having people who believe in that and say, look, I'll come and work, or I'll come and give my time for that. So we sort of tweaked. I think maybe the word change is wrong. We adapted our model and said we need to add another revenue source that allows us to be able to run a program or two or three a year, even if we're not getting any grant funding. Okay, we've not gotten any grant funding. Before, it was corporate sponsorship for the trips that we're doing. So even if we don't have sponsorship and stuff like that, we probably won't be able to run the things at the scale at which we want. But better to reach 10 creatives now, than to wait and say, okay, I won't reach this 10 because I cannot reach 100, or I cannot reach 200 because I don't have that kind of budget. So yeah.
And what what do you look like now? What are the core pieces and your processes?
So the core pieces for us, the marketplace is at the center of what we do. Um, and and a lot of the stuff that we're doing is being built around that. And the reason behind that is the realization that, one, for an economy like ours, you're always in competition with the person's next meal. Whatever it is going to put food on the table that day is what they're going to pay attention to, right? And so conversations around skilling and stuff, if they're not solving putting food on the table today, can become very tricky to have because they're not someone's priority. So our realization was that if we're going to scale creatives and generally elevate the level of creativity in the country from those skilling sessions, we're going to have to find a way to put food on the table, right? And so our marketplace has three tiers, um, in which people can engage with us, right? It has the poster job tier, which is just basically you want a piece of graphic design, like, hey, can you get me a flyer for my next conference? Bam, we get a creative to whip it out and send it to you. The second thing is what we call Talent Scout, where we attach creatives to organizations. You have a 6-month engagement. You don't want to go through the process of trying to hire someone, all this time. So you do that. And then there's the creative circle, which is like the response to the agency model. You want a bunch of people, a collective of people, to be able to work on your product, your brand, and stuff like that. We put them together based on your specific needs, and they work on that. And that also in turn maps what our process is. So we have something that we call minimum viable skill. When you send in your CV or whatever, we evaluate you based on that, right? Do you have a minimum? Do you have the minimum viability to be able to be put to work? And so when you have that, then you can join our ecosystem, because the belief is that if you're having work, then you're more inclined to say, okay, you know what, I would want to access the talent scout jobs, but those require a certain kind of skill set. You have to have gone through certain kind of things, and therefore you're more inclined to just go into these skilling programs, knowing that they elevate you in some way. And the same thing with the creative circle. So you have that growth track going for you. So the marketplace is the center, and then we build the skilling around that. That we're trying to work on entry level skilling for people who want to do get the minimum viable skill. But also when you get into the system, we're saying, okay, how do we skill you to make sure that you grow so that you can take on more complex projects in the creative scene. So we are that's how we're built, and somewhere in there, God willing, we'll be able to just provide a tool shed where at a certain level you can be able to access tools. That means, because you're accessing them at a discounted rate, you're saving more money for yourself, but also even just the ability to do the work now. For example, a lot of creatives will get work, but because the corporate world says, oh, it's an LPO 45-day, 90-day payment cycle, um, and yet they have to sort of rent the equipment to do the work, then they either can't take the job or go and get a loan for money, take the job, and they end up making no money at the end of the job because, whatever it is that they're making is servicing the loan. So, being able to provide that tool shed where they can be able to access the stuff, it would be magical, right? Because then it
Mhm.
means more money into the creative's pocket. But it means the ability for them to take on the work today, right?
Mhm.
Because they know that they have the support tools in the system. So, yeah,
Sorry, there's a dog barking somewhere in the background. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so so you're a two-way marketplace. You've got the clients who sign up, and you've got the creatives who sign up. Is that right? And then
Yes,
they
yes,
meet on your. Mhm.
yes, we're a two-way marketplace. So yeah. So what happens is we, provide a platform that people can trust, right? Because again, normally when dealing with freelancers, a lot of people have severe trust issues, right? In that way. And so having an entity that's registered, that's organized, that you can engage with works, for people who are hiring work, but also for the creatives, because again, the market can sometimes be brutal to freelancers for people having you do work and not paying you, or and just those things. They can also trust us to be able to handle that relationship, right?
Mhm.
Um, with them. So yes, we're a two-way marketplace. On one end, we have the clients. On one end, we have the creatives. And right now, it works like a concierge system where you bring us a project, and we recommend the creatives that who have the skill set to be able to do that project. And not just say, because sometimes, for example, some guys are like, oh, you know what, I want to do some product photography, and then they'll go and find someone who does event photography, right? And the person, because again the economy sometimes pushes, you will say, oh, you know what, I can shoot that, but then they don't deliver well, and then that reflects badly on creatives, you
Mhm.
know and so we say, look, you'll bring us a job, you'll say, I want product photography, we'll find you a product photographer who will be able to output that work and give you, like, actual quality product photography. So that concierge system, that being able to know, who is the talent that we have in our pool, who can give you the exact results that you're looking for, and being able to match you with that talent.
Mhm. Mhm. And so you mentioned before these three things of tools, markets, and creatives. Was that correct? Was it tools,
Tools,
markets,
market,
and
and
resource
skills. And
skills? Sorry.
skills.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell me more about that then. How that fits into your strategy as well.
All right. So creative education is expensive for most. Most people in this country won't be able to afford it.
Hmm.
Like actual good creative, actual good film school, actual good photography school, like art school and stuff like that. Most people won't be able to afford it. But the advantage with the creative industry is that it's one of the industries where peer to peer learning can be very, very effective,
Hmm.
because it leans into two things. It leans into passion and your drive to do something, but also leans into you, sort of like this natural inkling that people have for things. So, the people will pick up a camera, and in 2 weeks they're taking pictures because their eye just has it, right? and you have to teach them a few things around, the science of pictures, and allow them to understand why their eye is making the decisions it makes, so they can make it with better precision, right? Yeah, but there is that. So for a lot of people, accessing skills has been very complicated. A lot of people drop out because again, their skill level stops at some point. So for example, you can only teach yourself so much on YouTube, right?
Hmm.
And but if someone has been shooting films for 10 years, right, there are things that they have learned shooting films that they can be able to pass on to you, right? And you'll be able to learn, and you'll be able to learn faster, right? So you won't have to spend 10 years learning. You'll spend 18 months learning from this person and be able to produce quality work. So
Yeah.
making skills affordable through peer-to-peer learning is really important for us. And the way that fits in is that if we can skill people, it's two ways. One, on the baseline is that you have such a huge number of people with the minimum viable skill that the industry has absolutely no option but to elevate. The only way you stand out is by being extra good. So just generally, we believe that that can push the level of creativity up, right? But also the belief is that it can actually enable us put out better creative work and stop hemorrhaging creative work to people from outside, so film crews from South Africa, or and stuff like that. If Disney is shooting a movie here, why isn't the hugest percentage of crew Ugandans, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the thing is, we just don't have the skill set. It might be a skill set thing. So there's that. So that's why skilling is important. Tools are important, of course, because I mean tools are expensive. A good quality camera with a good quality lens, or a good quality drawing tab for an illustrator, is again out of reach for most people, right? And so utilizing economies of scale to be able to make those things affordable to more than one person might make it easier for people to start their creative practice faster, right?
Yeah.
The third one is access to markets. Again, most people will have the skill, but they won't know how to put themselves out there, how to talk to the right people. And that's why, marketing is a department in most organizations in itself, right? And the expectation that a creative will be a creative, a good illustrator, but somehow also be a superstar marketeer is ridiculous, right?
Hmm.
Because the guys who run proper businesses know it doesn't work like that, right? There are certain people who know how to find markets. There are certain things that go into finding markets. There's money, there's time, and a lot of times people don't have that. And so being able to say, look, we'll cut that stuff out and we'll go out and sweat and find the market for you, um, so you can concentrate on putting out the work that you want to put out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. How has then you've talked a bit about your personal experience, but how has your personal experience as a human, as a creative, uh, formed what you've learned, or what are the things that you've learned that you'd like to share as well?
So for me as an individual, so I'm a self-taught creative. I've somehow been in the creative space my entire life, but I never went to creative school. The closest I got to that was art school, right? And I was privileged to be able to do that because it has informed a lot of the ways I do things. Um, but I taught myself, so in I've always had the thing of creating space for creatives somehow. I don't know why. It just seemed like a thing I liked to do. So I was forming bands in school, in my O level, and being part of these productions and stuff like that. When I went to my A level, it seemed like the space that school was saying, creativity in the school I was in was really limited. So me and a friend and a couple of friends had to just form this new club that was that opened up this scope, and then we put on this show once a year that people doing all these different things. And then I went into broadcast, right? I auditioned to be to be a radio presenter. I get the role with three other people, with two other people. Sorry, those two people get a radio show, and I'm just seated there. And I decide, look, I need to do something with my time anyway. So I walk into the production studio. I learn how to do audio production, and then that leads to me being part of like the creative team that's sort of building these programs. And then that's like what, 2009. Social media is just sort of becoming a thing at that point, and it's intriguing. And I'm just like, okay, you know what? I mean, to be able to do this, you probably need to be like learn a bit of graphic design, right? And I am really tired of asking the people in the big monolithic organization to do things for me because it takes forever. So I teach myself graphic design, and then I started doing my own graphic design, and it has always been like that way. Like every challenge that has come, oh, I'm doing this campaign. So when I started doing the Koi Koi campaign, for example, I was not a photographer, but the first trip were like all of 6 people, and most of us were not photographers. So I'm just like, oh, you know what? I need to learn how to photograph. I mean, so I'm not like a huge professional at all these things, but I just sort of kept, doing that. But also for me, the thing that sort of drove this thing home is that I had all these skills, right? But I was struggling to make money, right? And I was just like, I can't understand how I have all these things, but I'm struggling to make money. And I did not know how to find markets. I did not know how to find the people who needed my services, and stuff like that. And said, okay, a lot of the stuff that we're trying to solve now are problems that I have faced as an individual. And I I am hoping that by solving them, I can make life for the creatives who come after me a lot easier. I can make them start faster. I can help them make some money and not struggle, not go through the struggles that I've gone through. Yeah.
So you've talked about the creatives finding your way into being a creative, teaching yourself how to be a creative, and teaching yourself and finding it natural to bring creatives together. So who should find Kafunda Creative, because it's not just those creatives, right? It's also people from outside design and outside creative who want to find creatives. So who should be contacting Kafunda Creative, and where should they be looking?
So everyone should be okay. That's weird, but I think if you're looking, so Kafunda Creative focuses on six particular areas of the creative space. I mean, we can't do everything. But we focus on the content areas of the creative space. So we focus on photography. We focus on film. So that's videography. We focus on graphic design, illustration, animation, and content writing, both copy and short, long form writing. So if you're in need of any of those services, I think you should reach out. And that's a broad scope of things. It's from trying to figure out your company tagline, for example. We've written a couple of those, to trying to write your latest newsletter, to running a PR campaign that requires you to write 20 articles for print and for blog and do photography and maybe do some illustration in between, to illustrating your children's book, to doing a poster for your next event, to designing your brand. So that's the breadth of work that we can do. And reaching us is very, very easy. Kafundacreative.com. That's KAFUNDA, and then creative, but with a K. That's KREATIVE.com. And when you go to that website, you'll be greeted by a phrase, the easiest way to get creative work done, because that's the truth. And then there'll be two buttons, right? So if you're creative and you want to join the ecosystem, you say there's a button that says find work, right? If you are a business and you're looking for that, there's a button that says find talent. So you click there, it will take you to a place that has three options. So if you're just looking for a one-off job, you want to do it, you're just looking for an illustrator to do your health manual and stuff like that, you see post a job, right? If you're looking for someone to be attached to your organization for months, or 3 months, 6 months, a year, but you don't want to go through the madness of trying to hire someone, we have the Talent Scout program, right, where we attach someone. If you're looking for something more complex, you're like, I'm tired of my ad agency, or it might even be that, it might just be that the job that you're looking for requires more than one person. So, you need a photographer and a writer and a filmmaker to just go and document the work that your NGO is doing, right? So we'll put together a creative circle for you that will be able to do that. So it's very, very easy. Once you fill in that form, someone from the team will get in touch with you, confirm the details of your job, and then we'll move forward to the next steps of, okay, this is what this job will cost. These are the creatives who'll be working on your job. This is how we will be communicating, and just sort of move it from there on to be able to get your work out.
Are there any particular creatives on the platform or within your community who you think deserve a shout out? Who you'd like to draw people's attention to their great work? I'm sure there are many.
Ah,
So it's also
it's
okay
like
to say
asking me if I have a
no.
favorite. It's like asking me if I have a favorite child. Uh, like, no, nothing pops off the top of my head, and I think the reason that is that we have we have 120 creatives on the platform
Hmm.
currently, and there's such a diverse team of creatives. From, I mean, for example, if you just look at the writers, for example, we have people who can write great ads, and we have people who can write great, like, NGO newsletters, and they know that field and can whip it out. And so it's very difficult to just say, hey, I'd like to shout out to this one, because we are trying to get people into the element in which they are special,
Hmm.
right? And that would mean that I am thinking of one element as more special than the other, which is not the truth. So it's very, very difficult to shout out to single people.
Okay,
Yeah, that's very, very difficult.
good,
But
good.
shout outs, I mean, the team that works behind the scenes, which is a bunch of really creative people, who work tirelessly to make sure that this stuff moves. Our creative director, Andrew Lutakoma, who is a brilliant self-taught graphic designer, is actually a vet by training, but decided he wanted to do graphics design. And so, we have that. We have Consulate, who is our community lead. I think she's the one who got in touch with you. She's a brilliant, brilliant person. Um, we have another boy called Chwezi, who is our director of production. Again, self-taught, a filmmaker, music video director, a Photoshop guru, um, but also with an absolutely inspiring story of saying, look, I'm not going to lean into the cycle in which my family is in, and I'm going to use the creative arts to pull myself out by the socks. And he's doing quite well right now. So I mean, just shouting out to those people whose stories are inspiring, for starters, and they're motivating even internally, but also just make the time and the effort to just make sure that they are giving 100% to try and build the creative community that they want to see. So
Absolutely. Well done, team. It's always a team effort. It is here as well with the
it is.
podcast, with Nairobi Design Week Festival and the studio. It's always a team effort. So thank you.
Yes, it
Thank you to
is.
the team as well. Yeah. So any closing thoughts? Anything else you'd like to share?
No, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and for introducing me to your community. I'm sure I'm certain I'm going to have a lot of friends, new friends, from Nairobi by the time I'm done with this. It's exciting to see how that happens. I look forward to seeing what this relationship turns out to be. The podcast is just the beginning, so let's to see what this happens. But for me, the parting remarks are one, to creatives who are out there. um, I think like community is really important, and I think let's strive to build communities in which our work, first of all, is critiqued. It's in the communities in which we grow, but also communities which we can find to collaborate with. Yeah, so Kafunda Creative is not in Nairobi yet, but it doesn't stop us from taking creatives from Nairobi. Um, and so if you're creative from Nairobi and you want to sign up to Kafunda Creative, because sometimes we have people come and say, "Oh, do you have Africa wide reach?" And you're like, "No, not yet." You know. So if you're creative in Nairobi or whatever part of Africa will be listening to this podcast, Kafunda Creative is not only open to Ugandans. What we're trying to do is build an African creative ecosystem, so that if we have the ability to be able to say, hey, someone needs work done in South Africa, we can be able to send a South African photographer or a Nairobi photographer. We don't have to say, oh, let's get a photographer from Uganda to jump on a bus to come and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to build, the company is built around local communities and want to be able to do that. So just go check out the website, sign up. You'll have a link that says drop your portfolio. Please just drop it there. And whenever we find work that suits your skill set, I will be able to send that to you. So that's important for me to say, but also just let's keep creating. It's I think one of the most inspiring things for me is taking time off to look at other people's work. And if the last couple of years have taught us anything, is that the world would be such a miserable place without art and without people who are taking the time to create. And I know sometimes art can be lonely and unsatisfying, and a lot of times very bad economically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of that is because people don't appreciate art on one hand. The other half is because we are really bad at asking for what we're worth as creatives. But I'll just like keep creating. I look at a lot of photographers from Nairobi, and I'm just like, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to work with that guy. And it's just from just creating and sharing your work. You have absolutely
Mm-hmm.
no idea who your work is inspiring and what difference it's making in the world, but you just putting it out there. So keep creating, and you never know, things do come out of the woodwork when you least expect them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's
Totally
been a
appreciate it.
pleasure. Cheers. If you've made it this far, have ideas for episodes, or know somebody we should feature, please let us know. Full episode transcripts are available at our website, africa.design. All the links are in the description. We're available on all your favorite podcast platforms. I'm Adrian Jankowiak. This episode was edited by David Kingori, and thank you for tuning in to Africa Design.